Thanks very much, John, for inviting me to Melbourne for this event. I have actually been working at the National ICT Australia for the last 3.5 years. I still hold my conjoint appointment at the University of New South Wales as an associate professor in services and software engineering area. But more recently, I have been working with my team of computer scientists and software engineers in the area of cloud computing. And today it's my pleasure to share with you some of our observations over the last few years around industry adoption and trials of cloud computing, but also in particular some of our R&D activities at NICTA in the area of cloud computing. And I'm hoping the topic that John has given me in terms of managing the transition, I'll be able to share some interesting thoughts with you for you to also have a good ponder about, and also hopefully stimulating your imagination and your creativity around the areas of what can we do to actually innovate now that we have a few new tools around cloud computing. So just a few words about National ICT Australia. Just quick show of hand, who actually has come across NICTA in the past? Or, oh, great, fantastic. I've been at NICTA for 3 years, and over time I see a few more hands every time I speak. So it's fantastic to come out here and actually engage with the wider community, wider industry, rather than just sitting behind in our own ivory tower and being a bit of an isolated professors and researchers. And so it's very exciting to come out here and talk with you and share with you what we do at NICTA. It's actually a relatively new organisation. It's been around for about 10 years now, so we're proudly celebrating 10 years anniversary. It's the largest information and communication technology research organisation in Australia, funded by both the federal and the state governments across the country. We have about 700 people now, 400 or 500 full-time employees, typically computer science, electrical engineers, but also various business professionals, and 200 or 300 PhD students in our lab. So we have an interesting business model at NICTA. We have 7 founding university partners. So I myself essentially is on the secondment from the university to NICTA. And we actually, through the support of the university environment, supervise postgraduate students to embark on advanced R&D in various areas, such as software systems, such as cloud computing, and particularly in Victoria, we're very strong in the e-health and big data science areas. Our key goal is really to make sure that the intellectual property and the research that we produce sees adoption, it becoming an enabler for industry innovation across Australia. And increasingly in the digital economy world, this is a global business. So we are also seeing some of our impact of our research at a global level. So as an example, some of our software technology is actually embedded inside 1.8 billion mobile phone devices around the world through a commercialized spin-off entity by the name of OK Labs. Some of you may have heard of before. Okay, so that's very briefly what NICTA is. So today, I think Rob has already done a fantastic job in terms of articulating what are some of the opportunities as well as the challenges around cloud computing and around the adoption of cloud computing. I'll quickly touch on some of those issues, and I'll put forward a little bit of a perspective from my own personal perspective and my research team's observation of the last few years. But then very quickly, I'd like to touch on the transition strategy. So, if we see cloud computing have the potential for us to do something differently, for us to, radically rationalize the way we do enterprise IT, what are the different ways and techniques and tools that we can actually take up in moving along that journey? So I think we've heard this before in terms of cloud computing having the ability to help you look at reducing cost and complexity. The pay per use the sharing model means the economies of scale, means the cloud vendors are able to pass on that kind of cost saving to the consumers, to the end users. The ecosystem is becoming more and more rich in cloud computing, so you'll see interesting business models. The shift from initial capital expenditure to pay-per-use to subscription-based, makes us really think about, well, what are the different ways that my organisation can also plug into that new way of doing things? Is it in fact compatible to the way I actually run my budget and planning from my organisation's perspective? If not, then what are the opportunities and what are the disconnects associated with that? At the same time, it is not dissimilar to our traditional outsourcing model. So from an infrastructure management perspective, infrastructure as a service clouds, such as the Amazon Web Services, for example, really enables you to think, well, do I actually need to have that kind of infrastructure management capability? Do I really need to focus on that? Or is there an opportunity for me to focus on my business capability issues, as opposed to really focusing on the details of enabling IT infrastructure? So there's a few opportunities for us to think about, where are the areas that now I can actually focus on. Innovation possibilities. So being computer scientists, we really are very excited about what is now possible through this globally connected cloud infrastructure. I love what Rob had said in the previous session. Now for everyone, even for the small and medium organizations, the cloud computing model gives you an access to enterprise level IT that you previously wouldn't be able to afford. So that's essentially what it is. Through a swipe of a credit card or a pay-per-use model, you have access to a globally connected infrastructure such that you can run a tertiary or a secondary backup at the other end of the world, on the other side of the globe, that you previously wouldn't be able to afford. So in the face of downtime, in the face of disaster, in a local geographic region, you are able to say, I actually have the ability to spin up my web-based system in a different part of the cloud. And that's not going to cost you an upfront of multi-millions of dollars to the large system integrator that's going to implement this for you in the first place. You're actually able to access that kind of capability very dynamically. But at the same time, everyone's got more and more data to manage. Everyone's got more and more data to actually think about, is there actually interesting value that sits within that set of data? As individual consumers, as individuals that works from home, and as individuals that looks at how our teenagers behave online, you would notice that there's a lot of interesting opportunities through that collection of data. Being local council, being local government, there's a lot of interesting environmental, housing, region, citizen, residents, information and data that we are the custodian and have governance over. It's our responsibility and role to figure out in the future what are some of the values we can help our residents to unlock in terms of all the interesting information and the data that we have, that we can really enable our next generation residents to come up with innovative ways of improving their lifestyle or unlocking new ways of doing new businesses, whether it's in a local geographic environment or whether it's in collaboration with our peers and neighbouring councils down the road. I get a goosebump every time I think about the possibility in that space. Back at NICTA, we are propeller hats kind of people. We have what we call machine learning algorithms, where it has the ability to trawl through massive amounts of data in the orders of not just megabytes, but in terms of gigabytes and petabytes, so that there is this engine that trawls through that sort of information in a privacy respectful way, but being able to produce you trends and analysis and forecasts and projections so that you are actually able to unlock that sort of interesting information out of the set of data that you have. Community cloud. When I think about this audience, I think community cloud, that's something we need to really talk about. I think, all of the different local councils and local government organisations probably have a set of common challenges and set of common issues and burning issues that keeps, the local councilmen and the CROs awake at night. The opportunity to collaborate, to share information, to share best practices, to share your learnings over time. And there's just huge potential, but how does one do that effectively? I think big thanks goes to John for organising forums like this for us to be able to exchange our learnings over a cup of coffee. But at the same time, ICT stands for Information and Communication Technology. It's about bridging the gap between the siloed individuals. I'm a bit of an introvert. I don't like talking to people. I'm a busy person as well, and so are many of you. But gosh, our teams, our residents, our business owners in our local geography, if we can use ICT technology to enable that collaboration, to enable that interaction and exchange, just imagine the sort of opportunity we can unlock for them. So I've titled this slide Perceived Risk. So I've been using this slide for 4 years. It's incredible. When I first started working in the cloud computing area at NICTA 4 years ago, I used this slide. And when I spoke to audiences then, we were battling with these are the concerns and issues, and we don't have good answers to them. And hence the conclusion from this conference is, it's a watching brief. We have to really figure it out and, calculate the risks and really, before we can jump into trialing, using, etc. 4 years on, I'm using the same slide, but I'm noticing people's perspectives have changed gradually. I think there's a lot more informed individuals out there and a lot of technical architects that are very well informed about the technical solutions that are very easy to use to counter some of these issues. So take, for example, security. When I speak to the architects at Commonwealth Bank of Australia, which is a big industry partner of NICTA, and we talk about the use of cloud and we talk about the security issues being a bank. I'm a customer, so, Mr. Michael Hart, what's your perspective on this? Well, it's actually one of the easiest things to manage. There's actually very clever encryption algorithms and the mathematicians and computer scientists are constantly punching out new ways of doing clever key management, authentication, authorization mechanisms, two-factor authentication. Back at NICTA, we have image analysis. So hopefully in the near future, on your phone, we'd be able to go snapshot of your face, knows who you are, and a bit of a Siri integration to say voice connection, and being able to two-factor authentication to say who you are, so that we are able to give you access to the mission-critical or the protected systems of your enterprise IT application. So there are, technologies like that coming out that really directly addresses the security issue related to the use of cloud. So I'd encourage you to keep an eye out of the possibilities and the technologies that's available right now and also on the horizon. Let's pick another one, interoperability. There's actually a good set of standardization efforts in the cloud community right now, globally. At NICTA, we're participating on a number of international standards around cloud computing, around different aspects of cloud computing. It'll take some time for those various communities to converge, but the intention and the goodwill is there. The technologist wants to make the individual pieces of the cloud map, jigsaw puzzles, to all fit together. So people want to make that interoperability piece work. It's in the whole cloud computing industry's vested interest to make interoperability work well. So that is also related to the lock-in aspects. And you'd be interested to hear that there are a number of major vendors that are essentially backing the interoperability agenda in the cloud computing world. So, the questions around, at a base level, you are able to migrate your application workloads from one cloud to another seamlessly in a highly managed fashion. That's not a picture of the future. Some of the technologies I'm about to show you actually enables you to do that fairly easily, and with some good support from major cloud providers as well. Privacy. Our country has one of the most stringent privacy laws on this planet. I think that's a demonstration of the proactiveness of the guardianship of the government, which is fantastic. But at the same time, it's important for us to really carefully understand, where we need to conform, where we need to take on the guidance and implement accordingly, and where we need to actually also contribute towards the appropriate stance around privacy. But as a result of that sort of context and backdrop, at NICTA we're doing a lot of research work and a lot of R&D work in the area of privacy concerns, in terms of helping people to manage, audit, monitor, where are your sensitive and protected data located right now as we speak in a real-time manner, so that you have a view in terms of, yes, all of my data need to be onshore in this country. Is that the case? And can I actually produce an audit based on that particular requirement? Service level agreement, that's not just a technical issue, that's also a contractual, commercial negotiation and conversation issue. Over the years, I've noticed interesting positions adopted by various cloud vendors. I remember distinctly 4 years ago when I first spoke to Amazon Web Services before they came to this country. They said, Anna, we're a retail company. The philosophy we take on around our web services and our infrastructure compute platform is also just like our bookstore. If you have an RFP from your government agency, you know what our response will be? Here is a URL, and here is the corresponding SLA to go with it. 4 years ago. 2 years ago, it was the first time I spoke to Teresa Carlson, VP of Public Sector Business at Amazon. Very different position. They understand that there is a gap between that new commodity cloud computing, public cloud computing model versus what's truly required by the enterprise, by the traditional, by the mission-critical applications. They must meet somewhere. And I think that gap of requirement is being met in a few different ways. One of the ways is that there are actually more sophisticated, more enterprise-ready SLAs that you can expect and contractual agreements that you can expect from a major cloud provider. But secondly, there is another way that it's being met. There is a vibrant partner ecosystem supported by some of these cloud vendors where those managed service partners are now meeting the enterprise IT requirements while at the same time using some of these cloud providers as a supplier of infrastructure services. So they are filling the gap. In our industry, I'm seeing some very exciting developments of that kind of slightly different tier 2 managed service provider organisations coming up to speed, and in many ways they're the perfect partners for the local governments. Okay. Integration with existing assets. This is not going to go away. We all have, and I won't use the word legacy systems, we all have an existing enterprise architecture, existing set of business applications we have to maintain and run and continually update and revise and deliver business capabilities. So how does these new models or new IT capabilities or new applications in the cloud, how do they integrate with my current Active Directory servers? How do they integrate with my current SAP or CRM or council register system applications? Those integration questions won't go away. Your chief of staff architect will still be very much required to think through the planning aspects of doing things properly. They're typically going to have a good 3 to 5 years horizon view of your total enterprise architecture design, and they simply have to work out where it makes sense to fold in the cloud computing way of doing things. And then how will that then get integrated and how will that actually innovate the new ways of doing integration with your existing enterprise assets. So I'm going to go into this slide where I'm going to share with you some of my observations around where people have made early adoptions of the cloud model. These are the typical application workloads, so internet scale web applications. It makes sense to, if we have a government system such as the visa application system for the international citizens of the world to apply for visa to enter Australia. It makes perfect sense to actually leverage the use of the cloud computing infrastructure and to actually provide that national capability for the rest of the world. So it's actually a very nice story that Department of Immigration has around a very smart way of using cloud computing for our visa application system, as an example. Mobile devices and our utilities industry has been a pioneer in this, and my observations of their innovation a few years back now is how do they enable their mobile workers going out to the different houses in residential areas and actually collect metering information. So that information is not necessarily private personal identification data. You will leave your private individual household information inside your firewall in your enterprise, in the Energy Australia and Water Board, etc. But those mobile workers will once again make use of their mobile devices, collect the metering information or other environmental information. And that information is actually presented in a way such that it's secure. It doesn't allow you to identify individual personal information, but upload it into the cloud. And that's where you have a dynamic way of accessing big compute powers to run analytics, to run forecasts. So it's a fantastic way of connecting the mobile devices, enabling your mobile workforce to the compute abilities of the cloud. And then on an offline scenario, reconciling those information with your CRM information to then generate the billing information within the firewall. Okay, so you can hear from that scenario I've described ways of partitioning different types of workload so that they're secure and there's those that's optimized for big analytics. Okay, so there's interesting applications and interesting use of the cloud. Dev and test. In the financial services world, I've seen very early adoptions of this, particularly an organisation that's been outsourcing IT management to third-party system integrators. The ability to rapidly provision dev and test environments. So if you have a contractor or workforce that's very highly variable based on seasonality and project-based, you're able to rapidly provision the compute power and the test dev abilities to those workforce. As opposed to waiting for a good 6 to 8 months before the machine gets delivered. At the end of the project, you don't know what to do with that machine. The cloud gives you the ability to actually rapidly provision those abilities for this dynamic workforce. Retail, Christmas, Mother's Day, seasonality swing, the elasticity, cloud is just perfect for that. Large-scale data analysis, I've touched on this, but once again, the cloud gives you an ability to rapidly provision additional compute power to actually run analytics on your set of data. And I just want to drill down further into the backup and disaster recovery workload. This is the one that we've spent a lot of time focusing on at NICTA, and I'm very keen to share with you some of the details there. Basically, our observation is that in the enterprise environment, disaster recovery solutions is very expensive. But the need to deliver a good DR coverage for mission-critical applications is not going away. And if anything, it's actually ever increasing. We've seen very challenging disaster situations in recent years. And I don't think that's going away. It's just a fact of life, of the environment that we live in right now. So how do we manage that proactively? Customer expectations and regulations, those requirements are not going away. They're actually becoming more and more tough. So at the same time, though, those traditional expensive DR solutions do not necessarily fulfill all the requirements, particularly around initiating a recovery. For those of you that actually have those DR solutions in place, you'll share the experiences that I have had in my previous life, that, you know, it's actually a really sophisticated decision to make around, do I fail over or do I not fail over? Because I know as soon as I click that fail over button, I'm sending my troops off onto the big unknown, despite my years of investment in the documentation of people processes and business processes. I'm fully aware there's going to be a 10-minute gap of transition, of transactions that might fall through. I've got to capture it through log and replay technology in the database layer. I've got to transfer that over. But what do I do when I fail back, and how does that impact my business as usual, daily operations? And it's a very sophisticated and advanced decision to make around that failover and recovery process. We've noticed through technology, cloud computing-based DR solution can actually help, just from a fundamental technical capability perspective. And so cloud-based DR solutions can't do everything. If you want near zero recovery points and recovery time objectives, you still have to simply stand up your secondary data center no more than 20 kilometres away, because that's the fundamental physical limits of that piece of copper wire that transfers your data, bits and bytes across, in order to guarantee that full synchronous solution so that I have near zero recovery point objective. All right? So it's not going to replace this. But what it's going to help is, in the past where you've got to go to the offline backup and tape scenario, there's actually better ways of doing that now. Better in terms of being able to do that faster, so you have a much more rapid way of automating, scheduling backups, standing up backups that are not only just in your local environment, in your local tape or environment, or some secret place that you drive down in a taxi to deposit your tapes, but actually through the globally connected cloud, you are able to stand up a secondary or tertiary backup system and data in a different part of the world. And the automation and the connectedness of the cloud means you are able to activate the spin up or the restore or the recovery through those secondary or tertiary backups through that connected cloud environment at fraction of the cost. The cost is reduced because you don't have to pay for a separate dedicated set of environment yourself. You simply have to pay for low-cost storage and spin up the systems when you need to activate the recovery. So we think it's a very exciting type of application workflow that you could make using the cloud. Really like the gentleman's comment around business capability. So I want to give you an example that hopefully everyone can connect with. Particularly those of you that have children at home, I think you'll connect with this particular application very well. HubWorks is a government-accredited childcare management system provider. So what it actually has is the ability to allow childcare service providers to manage children data in a way that is highly secure, respectful of the privacy issues, and at the same time it's running in the cloud. So it's a cloud-based solution. So the ability to rapidly spin up and expand as there are more childcare agencies signing up to this particular business capability. All of those detailed IT issues are taken care of. It enables strong engagements with not only the childcare service providers, it enables strong engagement with the parents, with the children, but also with the governments that are overseeing this kind of services being delivered to all of our citizens. And it's receiving good traction in terms of being inside more than 800 childcare service providers right now across the country, more than 300,000 children records, and touches more than 200,000 families. The interesting thing about this application is its ability to also easily connect with a number of government agencies in the back end. So Ruby, the CEO of the system, actually in the audience, has spent a lot of effort in looking at the back-end integration with the government agencies in order to support some of the compliance and reporting issues that are required and important for some of these childcare managed service providers. I'm going to come back in terms of what NICTA has done with this particular type of application. So Joel has given me the task of talking about transition and migration strategy. So if you've also in the process of looking at how do I make use of cloud, some of the issues here hopefully will echo with you. If not right now, but hopefully in the immediate future as you go on this journey. So with the HubWorks application, it's actually been around for quite some time, and one of the particular business requirement was that they needed to onshore the protected children's data. And what we have done at NICTA through some of our technologies is enable them to rapidly complete the total system and data migration from a cloud that was hosted offshore to a cloud that's now hosted onshore within the Australia territory. So it's a fairly sizable data of half a terabyte system size, both in terms of the actual system itself, the system deployment, and the data itself. And we were able to complete the total end-to-end migration within 4 hours with no business downtime. So essentially a snapshot of the total system and data was taken while the system was still live and running. And then the propagation and the replication of the system and data of the half a terabyte was happening in the background over the 4 hours. And the key is there is no system rewrite. So in the past, I've been involved in a number of migration projects, moving from the mainframe to the PC, the desktop. And the migration effort is great because very often there's a lot of challenging issues related to the actual re-architecting of your system in order to fit the new model. With the cloud, there's actually a variety of ways of supporting traditional application architectures. So our migration tool at NICTA has been built to actually support that seamless transition. So there is no need for application rewrite. For those of you that wear more of a technical architect hat in the audience, I'll be more than happy to share with you a detailed white paper of how that's actually completed. So at NICTA, we have produced a set of technologies available for use by the general public. For those of you that's not quite in the cloud yet and are in the phase of looking at evaluating cloud, and people have been talking about this, using the cloud because it changes your budget line from CapEx to OpEx. But, you know, how do I get a handle on the numbers involved in that scenario, in that change? So what we have is a tool that allows you to actually, on the left-hand side, specify your application and your business application requirement, the characteristics. So not dissimilar to the traditional capacity planning kind of exercise. So that you are able to say, this month, that's when it's really busy, you know, X number of people log in. At this particular time of the day, actually only a few people would log in typically to actually work and operate on that application. So based on that kind of capacity usage information, we produce an operational cost view of if you were to run that application on a particular cloud, what will be your ongoing subscription bill to that particular cloud vendor. So hopefully this is a neat tool that you are able to use as part of your business case. Now this obviously does not address the issues that Rob has spoken about earlier on in terms of total cost of ownership. So you will still have to figure out, what are some of the personnel changes and maintenance associated with this and your contractual conversations with the managed service provider. But this tool enables you to have a view into the operational subscription cost that would typically go to a cloud provider for your particular application requirement. This is a tool we call Monitor, and it's designed to give you additional visibility and control of your cloud applications. So one of the psychological issues related to the adoption of cloud is this loss of control and loss of visibility. So that's what this tool is designed to do, is to actually give you a good level of control and visibility so that you are able to monitor and see what's happening to the level of detail that you will need. So you can have actually a informed conversation with your cloud providers. Lastly, this is our flagship product, which has received most amount of our R&D investment in. We name it Bolt, and it directly addresses the interoperability and the portability challenges of cloud. So if there is ever an isolated downtime or an outage in one part of the cloud, this tool allows you, on a continuous manner, back up, stand up a secondary or a tertiary system somewhere else in the cloud, so you are able to, in the face of outage, rapidly spin up the secondary backup and actually fail over to that secondary site. At the same time, we are also, over the next 6 months or so, focusing our R&D effort in helping people to onboard into the cloud. So for those of you that's actually running VMware environments in your current enterprise or your local government environments, this tool is to be extended so that you are able to migrate your VMware-based environment, your VMware-based virtualization environment into, for example, the Amazon Web Services cloud. So you're able to stand up a secondary backup site that way. We'd love to talk to any of you that has interest in supporting us in trialing proof of concepts of that technology. So in summary, I think particularly for this audience, community cloud is what I believe to be something that holds some great promise for the future to enable collaboration, interaction for the benefit of our residents. Innovation possibilities around big data analytics. I myself is not really in the big data side of things, but I have a very big team of colleagues back at NICTA who are right now helping the financial services industry, helping the retail industry, helping the telco industry to really look at what can our advanced computer science, machine learning algorithms really help the industries to unlock the value that are currently locked inside the big data that we have. I think the adoption towards the cloud, we're not going to do away with the risk mitigation. The management issues are all still there. I think everyone needs to make those informed decisions, but at the same time there are more and more clever solutions and technologies that's going to make certain issues easier to deal with. Okay, and that's all from me. So just a quick word around getting involved with NICTA. So all of the tools that you've seen today are available for free trial. Please feel free to get in contact with me. It's very much NICTA's mandate in enabling our industries to be able to innovate with new technologies, and anything that we can produce to make it easier will be our great pleasure. We've been involved in terms of both public and in-house training side of things. And Euroware.com.au is actually an entity that NICTA has created as a wholly owned subsidiary or a startup, if you like, within the NICTA boundary. so that we can actually engage commercially in terms of supporting you to make use of some of the tools that I have presented today. Okay, thank you very much for your time.